Hey, it's your daily reminder to go check out the 9-point issue number 2 Kickstarter. It is a cute little comic Bones and I have been working on for a while about cat knights, and you can go get issue number 1 and number 2 if you go support. So thank you for listening to this. There's a link in the description down below if you want to go check it out. And now I am going to actually talk about what this video is about. Okay, thank you. Moving on. So something I found really important to learn in comics is that the action happens in the gutters. I remember learning this at a workshop done by Ty Templeton at Fan Expo one year, and it really helped me kind of understand what to include within my panels. This is maybe something I should have talked about with laying out your panels forever ago when I was talking about thumbnails, but I think you can apply it at any stage. Provided you aren't doing an animated comic, like Homestuck. Comics are a static art form, and you can't actually show moving things, obviously. However, the movement that happens in your art, so like the movement you're trying to capture within each panel, is implied. It's not actual movement, it's implied movement. For example, there are visual cues in your panels that will tell the reader that, say, for example, a character has moved across the room because in this panel, she was standing beside the couch, and now she's beside the fireplace in the next panel. You didn't actually see the movement happen, but you know it happened because the background changed, and she's now somewhere else. So obviously she moved. The same idea goes for if your characters are in a new pose or a new gesture. Obviously they've moved into that pose. They're not just one moment they're one way and the next second they're another way. The reader can imagine the movement. So each of your panels should be a snapshot of the action. So for example, say you have a character who fires an arrow. You don't need a panel of every second of that action. You don't need to show the bowstring being pulled back, then the arrow flying, then showing the trajectory of the arrow and showing several panels of it flying by different scenery, then showing the arrow hit an apple off someone's head, and then finally showing the arrow sticking out of the wall behind the person, impaling the apple. You can simplify all that movement and cut down on the number of panels you're using by simply showing maybe the bowstring being pulled back, and then in the next panel, the arrow sticking out of the wall through the apple, and someone looking shocked because an apple's just been shot off their head. You can simplify that to 2 panels if you want. You're telling the reader the same information, even though it's less being shown. The motion of the arrow is implied. You saw the arrow in the first panel, you see, okay, it's being put in a bow, something's going to happen with that. The next panel, you see where the arrow ended up. Obviously, there are moments in your comics where you might want to show the whole trajectory of the arrow. For example, if you want to slow down the moment for whatever reason, that is a good reason to use multiple panels showing small increments of movement. But for the most part, don't worry about showing every single little detail and every little bit of movement. If you have characters walking down a street, you don't need to show them passing every single shop on the street. You can just show them at the beginning and at the end of it. And it's implied that they changed places and went somewhere else. So remember, the action happens in the gutters being the spaces between each panel. Another thing to remember or try out is that you can show several stages of movement in one single panel. So for the most part, movement happens in the gutters, but you can also show movement within a single shot. The best example I can think of is, say you have a character who's jumping from rooftop to rooftop. If you showed that in several panels, it could be confusing, unless you have an establishing shot showing each roof and building, where it is and where it is in context to the other buildings that they're jumping around on. But a way to simplify showing this action is to just show a single establishing shot of all the rooftops, and then show in that same panel several versions of the character jumping across the rooftop and showing them landing on each of one of them. You can put a motion line showing kind of the arc of where they jumped if you want. You can also show one version of the character at the very end and just show the motion line showing kind of the path of where they jumped to get to where they are. I've seen the same idea done with characters in fight scenes, showing kind of ghost images of them blocking attacks or throwing new ones to imply a really fast movement or a really fast fight. There are lots of ways to utilize this. And it's another way to simplify movement and show it in your comic. It's also a technique that's very unique to comics. So that's cool. Anyways, always think of ways to show more depth of motion in your comics. You know, it'll make it feel more alive. Obviously, life is in motion, so you want to show that. And motion can also help with comic flow, making sure that your readers can move from one panel to the next. If the movement can carry their eye to the next panel, that's even better. So I hope this was informative. It's a concept that really helped me out in comics, because I think when I went into it, I just thought like, okay, it's hard to explain, because when I first got into it, it's like, it's just like snapshots of things. You just show like the most important part. But if your motion isn't implied correctly, it can be very jarring when you show up in a new panel and everything is totally different. So you need to make sure to like keep a through line of your motion to kind of understand, like, if someone's moved spaces, you probably want to like show an establishing shot of where they could have moved, or if they're in a room and they walk across the room, you probably want to show at some point before that what the whole room looks like. But yeah, keep that in mind. Keep your motion in the gutters for the most part, unless you're doing that fancy one panel movement thing. But yeah, just keep it in mind. It helped me out a lot with formulating my panels. So yeah, that's all I got. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave some comments down below. Make sure to subscribe if you want more cool videos about comics. Tomorrow, Bones will be doing another cool righty one. And I'm gonna go now. And because it's really nice outside now that we finally got out of like a big heat wave that has been making us very melty and sad. So yeah, I'm gonna go hang out outside for a bit. And make sure to go check out our Kickstarter. That would mean a lot to us. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!